Cortisol does more to drive weight gain after 40 than calories do. Here is exactly why. 3 hormones are at the center of metabolic disruption in perimenopause: estrogen, cortisol, and thyroid. So this week, I want to explain what each of these are doing to your metabolism and how they interact. Because I think once you see the full picture, the frustration of feeling like your body is not responding just makes a completely different kind of sense. Now let me start with estrogen, because I think its metabolic effects are the least well understood. Now, estrogen influences where the body stores fat. Before perimenopause, estrogen directs fat storage towards the hips and thighs. But as estrogen declines, that changes. Fat starts to move towards the abdomen. Now, this is a hormonal direction change, not a calorie one. It happens regardless of what a woman is eating. Now, abdominal fat is metabolically active in ways that really matter. It generates inflammatory signals. It worsens insulin resistance, and it contributes to cardiovascular risk. So the shift is not just a cosmetic one. Now, estrogen also supports insulin sensitivity. This is the efficiency with which cells take up glucose from the bloodstream. So as estrogen declines, insulin sensitivity also often decreases. The body becomes less efficient at this process. Blood sugar becomes harder to regulate. And when blood sugar is unstable, the cortisol response cycle we talked about last week just gets worse. And research has confirmed that estrogen receptors are present in fat tissue and directly influence how fat is stored and used. The loss of estrogen is not a background condition. It is an active change in how the body manages energy. So now let's talk about cortisol. This is the most important piece for most women who are watching this. Now, cortisol does 3 things that are directly relevant to metabolism. First, it drives fat storage in the abdomen. Second, it breaks down muscle tissue to use as fuel when glucose is scarce. And third, this is the one that most people don't know about. It suppresses the conversion of thyroid hormone from its inactive form to its active form. Let me explain that third one. So your thyroid produces a hormone called T4, and T4 is inactive. The body has to convert it to T3, which is the active form that actually enters your cells and regulates how fast they burn energy. But cortisol suppresses the enzyme that makes that conversion possible. So when cortisol is chronically elevated, your thyroid might be working perfectly and producing plenty of T4, but it's not getting converted to T3 efficiently. And this means your cells are not getting the metabolic signal that they need. Your resting metabolic rate slows down. And standard thyroid testing, which usually measures TSH and maybe sometimes T4, it might show nothing abnormal. This is why so many women have been told their thyroid is fine when they have significant thyroid symptoms. The problem is not in the production, it's in the conversion. And the driver of that conversion problem is cortisol. So these 3 hormones don't operate separately. They compound each other in ways that create a more significant metabolic disruption than any one of them could possibly produce on its own. Estrogen decline reduces insulin sensitivity. Cortisol also reduces insulin sensitivity. Together, they make blood sugar regulation significantly harder than either one does alone. And cortisol suppresses thyroid conversion. Reduced thyroid function reduces the body's ability to clear cortisol efficiently. So cortisol stays elevated longer, which suppresses thyroid more, which keeps cortisol higher. And the poor sleep that most perimenopausal women experience worsens insulin sensitivity, raises cortisol, and reduces growth hormone, which is one of the key hormones that supports muscle maintenance and fat metabolism. This is why the metabolic disruption of perimenopause can feel like it accelerates over time rather than staying stable. The interactions between these systems create compounding effects that really add up over time. So understanding the interactions tells you something important about what has to happen for things to actually improve. You cannot fully address thyroid function without reducing the cortisol that is suppressing conversion. You cannot fully reduce cortisol without supporting the nervous system that is driving it. You cannot fully support the nervous system without adequate nutritional foundations. And nutritional foundations are only fully absorbed when the gut is healthy enough to absorb them. So that is why the sequence matters so much. The nervous system first, nutritional restoration as the gut improves, thyroid support in parallel with both, sleep support throughout, because sleep is one of the most powerful metabolic regulators that there is. Now, next week is the final video in this series. We're going to look at what metabolic support at Santosha Wellness actually looks like in practice, what a real assessment finds, what the work involves, and what tends to change when it is done at the right level. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.